What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel where I love to showcase some early hands-on gameplay, give impressions, and on the rare occasion, give even a full review for a game. My name is Insight, and today our sights are set on South of Midnight, a new game from Compulsion Studio where we covered actually a few months ago, an early build of the game. And luckily enough, I was given a review copy for South of Midnight, and after rolling the credits, I got a pretty firm grasp about what this game has to offer. But before we begin, I will preface that this is a spoiler-free overview, so don't worry if you planned on picking this up. We're only going over gameplay and other aspects of that nature for the title. And with that short and sweet intro out of the way, let's begin. Please subscribe. And right out of the gate, guys, platforming is the key word here when it comes to South of Midnight's core gameplay, whether it's climbing or scaling walls, jumping over giant piranha plants, gliding through the air, or playing Bayou Frogger. This is how a chunk of the game is spent. But I would be incorrect in implying that this isn't time well spent, because the game is absolutely jam-packed with beautiful scapes, forest critters left and right, and undeniable charm, to a point where I'm almost dreading going into the combat section of the game, but I will elaborate that further later in the video. But for now, what should be understood about this game is that South of Midnight is very much so a linear game with branching paths scattered throughout the world to find collectibles, listen to Hazel reflect on the scenery, or find lore documents for those who are completionists. And something I absolutely love, and what is made very apparent from the beginning and throughout, is that South of Midnight very much so wants to tell its story, reinforced by every single cutscene, which has clearly been made with love, soul, voice acting, and wild characters to boot.
Come in, have some gizzards. I'm cooking them all before the power goes out.
You know I can't say no to your cooking.
This is then further complemented by its very clear inspiration from stop motion animation, and it's honestly just a wonderful experience, and I would challenge anyone to argue otherwise, even with gaming being as incredibly subjective as it is.
My salvation.
A talking fish? Nope. Ain't no way.
Oh, Weaver, like you must have seen stranger things than me.
But that's not to say the game is without faults. I did run into quite a bit of frame drops and stuttering in some chapters that were pretty persistent in the ones I found them in. Now, it wasn't egregious by any means. It didn't happen in every single chapter, and the game was still very much so playable. It was just keeping me from fully enjoying those aforementioned beautiful features. And it is something that can be addressed in a patch later on, so nothing to sweat too hard about. For me personally, one gripe I have in particular is that it can feel repetitive at times. One of which for me was a segment where you are chased by an entity of sorts, and after doing it a few times, it just felt more like a chore than an experience I enjoyed. But the only element I believe South of Midnight lacks in is its combat. There is just enough for a game of its length to work, and I think that's where it gets away with being pretty bare bones, but it is missing a flow that it really needs to be considered in a more positive light. And I think it's because all of the abilities are a pop it and wait for a cooldown situation, where I would much rather see it chain into using one of your other abilities or even your default attacks. Like, there's a little flow here and there, but it feels like a hack and slash game that just kind of misses the mark. But once again, it's completely understandable to have a combat system the way they do, because the game's not long in the least bit. Most people can beat it in a day if they really wanted to. So a super fleshed out combat system for a 13-ish hour game would be unnecessary in my opinion. So perfectly acceptable, just leaves you wanting more. And while we're on the topic of addressing the depth of the combat, I was actually surprised at just how many enemies there were. I think I clocked about 6 to 8 different enemies, all of which knew exactly how and when to be annoying. There was simple enemy fodder, brutes, and even one that cast a protective shield onto his allies. So I was impressed to see a small-scale game have more enemy diversity than even some AAA titles like Resident Evil 7. Yeah, I didn't forget about that, Capcom. Don't ever try to pull that crap again. But I digress. However, one place where this game absolutely shines is its boss fights, all of which just so happen to tug on your emotions one way or another, immersing you into the story way more than you initially planned. My personal favorite was Hug and Molly. That was just an awesome build-up, exceptional boss fight that actually was pretty creepy at times, and a resolution that I promise you will not see coming. But everything I mentioned up until this point pales in comparison to the music. The composers who worked on this game's tunes absolutely deserve their roses. The game is based around tragedy left and right, and each song captures the raw emotion that the subject surrounds. That's completely complemented by its rising action leading to the final conflict with that particular chapter's main adversary.
He was my brother, Benji his name. saw things different. He was my shade.
Now, South of Midnight is by no means a massive AAA game, but it's a near perfectly crafted linear game with a beautiful story to tell, and with it being on Game Pass or a $40 title, I think places the accessibility bar pretty low. But that's really going to do it for my short review of South of Midnight, guys. If you would like to see more, I have a no commentary first look you can check out that has been crafted to keep from spoiling the story. And if this game isn't your jam, maybe a demon slaying one is, and you can check out my early impressions of Doom the Dark Ages, where I got some hands-on time with the major title and all of its shiny new features. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.